Hi there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Well, a bit unusual today, so thank you for all joining us today. We wanted to host, I guess, really what we wanted to be doing for quite a while now, which is a bit of a mix between the regular webinars, I guess, that you guys might be watching online with other friends of ours like French Entree. We just wanted to bring you more of an insight of how we operate at French Connections HCB and introduce you more and more to people that we work with or indeed team members. And so that's what I want to do and bring you today. So before we start, I just wanted to give you a bit of an update and introduction on French Connections HCB and on the people that will be on the panelists today, so to speak, which are lovely Juliet and Anais. Before we start, I just wanted to give you an overview of what to expect of today's team talk. And the reason behind all of this in general is, as I said, we want to introduce you to what we do at French Connections HCB. We want to give you loads of information for free so that you can really make sure that you've got all of the info before you plan your move to France, or indeed if you're already in France and you have questions about your residency and renewals and things along those lines. And in terms of advice, I just want to put a disclaimer out there today, guys. As always, every application is treated on an individual basis, and that today the information that we might be giving you is accurate as of today, but it might not be tomorrow, and it will depend on your individual case. So before you go ahead and apply for something, just make sure that you've got all of the information and you've best prepared yourself for your visa or your residency application, because these are the main topics that we'll be talking about today. So for those that don't know French Connections HCB or myself, we'll tell off the marketing team, and we'll actually not see our marketing team today, but Ryan, our digital marketer, is actually in the background and helping us with all the questions, which I can see that loads are flowing in. So thank you so much for joining us and asking so much today already. But yeah, introduction to myself. So I was born in France in 1988. So I'm 36 years young. And I spent most of my time in the southwest of France. Indeed, growing up, I played rugby at quite a good level. And that's actually really anchored an awful lot of the connections that I have across the business world, and how, well, to be fair, I grew the business over the last 5 years. And so I mainly came from a corporate background. I worked mainly for US businesses. And actually, funny enough, it wasn't until I was recruited by a US business that I really discovered France. Because for those that know the southwest of France, I guess it's somewhere where you kind of consider anything that's north of Bordeaux is kind of not France anymore, at least not the same regions and the same mentality. So it's actually when I worked for US business that they sent me all around France, and I really discovered lovely, lovely other places like the northern parts of France, the central parts of France, and of course things that we have to deal with on a daily basis, because people are moving literally to every part of France. So yeah, our team are really used to working in different prefectures and things like that. So before we carry on and try and stop talking about myself here, guys, I'll just introduce you to the lovely panelists that we'll have today, which is the lovely Juliet and lovely Anais. So Juliet has actually started in our business, well, probably 3.5 years ago, something like that. And she's worked her way really from the bottom to pretty much managing all of our admin departments, and she's had many roles in the company. She originates from Bordeaux, which is just borderline from what I would consider the southwest of France. But yeah, of course, Bordeaux, everyone knows, and she studied there. And really, Juliet's main passion, I'm sure we'll get to talk about it, is also properties, real estate, and she's just very good at finding loads of solutions. I think very much so within our team, organically, we've kind of gained specializations. And I think Juliet is just one of those people that's just super good at finding solutions. So yeah, I mean, again, she can be quite scary sometimes on the phone to all of these French administration teams that we work with. And that's something culturally that I think is super important. There is such a difference between the emotional connection of the English language and the fact that we are in France with a Latin culture, and it's okay to go to the clash. And when Juliette needs backup for that, we have the lovely Maître Anaïs Vincent, who is immigration lawyer. So she specialized in immigration law, and she holds that function at the Barreau de Toulouse. So Toulouse being the kind of capital or the center of Occitanie, not too far away from where I grew up, near Auch in the Gers. And for those that want to actually see where that is, there's a map of France, and Toulouse, as you can see, just by where our admin offices are near Auch. And law and legal matters, we also manage from sub-offices in Paris. And we also have, well, mainly our team are based in the Southwest, but they will work for a big part remotely. So I think that's super important, that, you know, the reason I was able to create and to set up the business in this way is mainly due to technology. And we'll come to that in a second and how we use that. But I worked for huge, massive corporate companies that, you know, I was fortunate enough to steal the best bits from. And one of which was, you know, I worked for a US business that was based in Miami, had offices all over the world, and I was home based. So already, this was before COVID, we learned to use technology to our advantage. And today, that's a really key part of what we do, because, well, both for you as clients, you're going to be based all over the English speaking world, coming to France. You might be all over France, and we need to have tools to be able to communicate quickly and efficiently between each other. In 2021, we also launched the renovations business, which now is head officed in Kent in the UK, but operates under French rules and regulations, with our office also based in the southwest of France. So yeah, we've got a really mix, I guess, of cultures, but also skill sets and all of that within a team that is 99% our own. We obviously, for some things like law, insurance, we have to subcontract, but we are very cautious of how we do that. And we do that under my command, if you like, and under my technology approach, so that it seems completely seamless for you as a client. In terms of specialities, I mean, we today really focus on an all-inclusive package. And that takes you from visa, healthcare, tax code creation, driving license, tax filling, to residency applications and more. We will also offer, for instance, to clients the ability to purchase a vehicle on their behalf, to have it delivered to the airport. We also can look after your rental needs. If you do need to rent somewhere initially, we actually have our own properties. We can help with consultancy on purchasing houses. We've got partners that can help you with financial advice. We, of course, do most of this in-house, but for some things, you know, we've trialed all of the best people around us to offer these services. And so, just clearly speaking, today, the full kind of relocation package concept is that we want to bring you the easiest way to be able to move to France. Now, I'd just like to make it extremely clear that most of these services, if not all, are completely free of charge. You could do these yourself. So you choose to use a company like ours because we are going to deliver a guarantee on all of our services, on all of our products, and we genuinely really care. But equally, we're going to be launching in the next few months some free videos on how to move to France from an admin perspective, whether it be visa, healthcare, tax code creations, driving license. We're going to give all of that away for free. You heard me. Like, we genuinely want to give you that information for free so that you will be able to do these, and maybe there'll be some small paid for do-it-yourself guides. But really, we want to give you that info for free because we know that the clients that choose to use our services are really based on the fact that they just want one partner to help them and be reliable and really truly understand the laws and customs of the country. And, that's what we deliver on and have delivered on for many years now extremely well. So yeah, if you have that mindset, obviously you'll need to book a consultation with us, and we can talk about your particular case. One of the things that I mentioned just previously is our client portal, and it's all, and this is around the technology that we've built internally, and we're constantly actually improving on that. And very soon you'll have exactly the same kind of service for all of the sub-services that we have within the business, including renovation work, where you'll be able to track everything, including legal aspects of your purchase, etc., through your client portal. We're actually partnering with a company that's recently been bought out by Microsoft, and we're going to be building an absolutely amazing platform for you guys to be able to interact with us, but also track and check all of your ongoing procedures. And so basically, when you become a client with us, once you've had your initial consultation, we've built a tailored quote, you've chosen one of our payment plans, and you're ready to go. Once you make your first payment, you'll have access to this portal, but you'll also be allocated an account manager like Juliet, for instance, in the team that will be looking after your full relocation. And so I think it's important to mention that a lot of clients might even sign up 12 months before they plan to leave, because on this portal, they can start uploading files. Our legal and paralegal teams can check things. And so, yeah, this is really a key part of what we do. Our teams themselves have a back office access and can, interact with the information that you've provided. And again, we want to make this better and better. So expect more and more from this portal over the next few months, years to come, because this is something that we really value within the usage and for you guys as clients, but also for our teams to work on and develop. That's pretty much it for the introduction part. So I'm going to shut up now and kind of give you the speech and say, look, okay, what are your mainly asked questions around visa and immigration? And we're going to have my two lovely specialists today to be able to answer some of your questions. I might butt in and see a lot of the questions that you've angled towards us are really to do with just general things around relocation. And before, Anais jumped in there beforehand, but before you click off and kind of ask the questions and go through the general requests that you might have from an admin perspective, don't forget to like and subscribe us on YouTube, Facebook, etc. You'll see loads of useful information that will come along in forms of current updates on all of the things that you might be asking yourself when moving to France. So without any further ado, guys, Anais, it's okay, you can come and join us now. And Juliet, hi there, guys.
Hello, hi everybody.
Hi. Stuff. So Anais couldn't wait to jump on the call. I guess you were you were eager to get there. So yeah, that's kind of it for me now. So I think we're going to pass it over to Ryan, that's going to start sending over some questions to us. So thank you all for sticking through that full presentation of update of what French Connections HCB can offer. And obviously there's going to be a whole load of questions here. I might not have time, or we might not have time to answer them all today. We will get back to you individually, and we will be sending through a follow-up email with the ability to book an appointment with us, essentially. So, don't worry, guys. If we can't answer specifically, definitely get back to you. And if the questions are just a little bit too specific, we might want to book an appointment anyway, just to answer your questions. So I'm going to read out a few that I've seen coming through. So thanks, Ryan, for sharing. And I think this is going to be one for Anais. There's going to be a lot for you, I'm sure, Anais. So is having an EU citizenship, sorry, try to get that one, the same as having a residency? Well, is it the same as having residency, or will we still need to apply for residency? So what are your views on that, Anais?
So, yes, it is a question that is asked many times. and it will depend, in fact, about your situation. Um, the permit to stay for an EU citizen is not obligatory. You can circulate more than 3 months and maintain yourself on the territory over the 3 months, which is the main rule in the immigration law. But if you are a charge, there is an able charge for the French government. For instance, if you need financial help, etc., you will need a permit to stay in order to obtain these benefits. If you are just arrival and want to work in France, it's totally possible. You don't have to apply for an authorization of work, etc. So it's all the time you will need to benefit from French government helps, that it will be interesting maybe to depose a demand of permit to stay.
And I think, Juliette, we might have something else to add into that because, of course, the healthcare, you mentioned, Anais, the getting a healthcare card. I think we've had a case recently where, was it an EU citizen? I think that the CPAM, Caisse Primaire d'Assurance Maladie, which are the lovely people that look after all of the healthcare in France, which essentially is free once you've spent 90 days in France, right? So once you've enlisted, there's a free service. But wasn't there somewhere where they wanted a EU citizen to have a carte de séjour?
It was
it
was very specific. Like explained Anaïs, it was a specific case, and in his situation, he has to apply for a resident permit to have the carte vitale. And it's good maybe to anticipate it, because in his case, today it was more difficult for him to apply for the residency card and to obtain the residency card. So yeah, if you can anticipate it, I advise to do it. And
so
if I can add something regarding what explained Juliette is, for instance, in one of my case, the person wanted to benefit from its Italian pension. And in order to get this pension from the CARSAT, which is an organism in France, it is necessary to have a permit to stay. And to get this permit to stay, you need to prove resources. And at this moment, the person does not have any more because she was not working. So that's why it's important to anticipate, as Juliette explained.
So I think the lesson here, just generally speaking on that particular topic, is that, as I mentioned before, an awful lot of these kind of applications are on regional bases, and they are on different case per case. And there's going to be, although you might have something that's fairly straightforward, there might be a complexity that's linked to paperwork that you may not have. That's something that we often have issues with, because I think in particular, the main thing I draw the attention to for all of those watching is that France wants to deliver visas. As long as you've got the main sort of free topics of income, somewhere to live, and the right medical insurance or coverage, visa applications are pretty straightforward, So I think, again, if you're panicked about that, just don't worry about that aspect. What can become quite complex, and, of course, I'm not taking away from what you're doing, Anais, but there are cases where, just from a simple admin perspective, super difficult to get like a carte vitale. It might take us 9 months or more. And, that's often things that we're confronted to, Juliette, I guess, on the kind of other side of the visa. So, yeah, I mean, again, preparation is key, making sure that you've got a partner that really understands if you're going to employ somebody to do this. Just make sure that there's guarantees that they've done this before, that there's going to be regular follow-ups, that there's going to be a process that is followed between the lines, if that makes sense. But there's so many questions rushing in, so let's jump on to another one. There's an anonymous attendee that said, I'm a US citizen and I'm self-employed. I plan to keep running my business post-move and maintain my US clients since my work is all virtual. What would be the right visa for me? And entrepreneur, And what visa would I need to be able to also take on new French clients? So I think there's two questions there nearly, because there's remote working rules and regulations. And there's also potentially, well, there's no more remote work now, and it's actually, I need the right to work in France. So there's probably two options there, isn't there, Anais? Wouldn't I be right in saying, thinking so?
Yeah, in fact, a choice will be good between the two scenario because it will directly affect the type of visa needed. Okay. For instance, if the person wants to continue to work abroad but have a residency in France, um, the best to me is to choose the visitor visa because it's the easier to have. The conditions are easier because it's only condition of resources and condition of the yeah,
The
like
income requirement,
general
the
things, yeah,
standard, yeah.
insurance, etc. But at the time you want to work effectively in France with new clients, French new clients, it is prohibited to have a visitor visa because in the visitor visa you engage yourself to do not work in France. That's why the second scenario will need to change this type of visa and to choose maybe an entrepreneur, sorry, visa, or maybe a talent passport, which is a very specific type of visa. And you have two options. You can enter with a visitor visa and asking a changement of statutes, or you can directly enter with a visa that permits you to work. So we could discuss more with this person later
Well,
because it's very
I think
personalized.
it's quite a specific one. My gut
Yeah.
feeling is always that actually I'd agree with you, and they like coming as a tourist on a tourist visa, which allows remote working as long as the activity is not a company that's linked economically to France. There's no other employees. You're working from your home, not from a co-working space. You're behind your laptop, and you remain a taxpayer. And of course, as a US citizen, you always will, but you remain to be paid in the US for the work that you're virtually doing, if you like, and then potentially change your status once in France towards a working visa, a working carte de séjour, with the ability to then take on French clients. So it's like a dual approach kind of attack, I guess, there, because otherwise, I think the other thing is if you don't know how many French clients you're going to have, maybe setting up French business is not the best way to do it. And then that kind of talent passport entrepreneur visa is going to be quite more complex to obtain. And you're going to have to stick to the business plan really in 4 years' time to, you're going to have to make this work. So whilst it has an advantage of allowing you to do an activity straight away, I think maybe the more flexible one would be there. But yeah, again, guys, if you've got more questions, if you potentially with that particular one, you need to speak with us, and we'll give you a fully detailed quote of what to do and what our advice would be there. So thanks for that. Another question that's come through, and I'm just picking a few that I think are reoccurring here, guys. So again, for those that we haven't answered, we will get back to you. So another question, what would be required to move to France with an infant as a single parent? Does my child need a visa? Good question. And how does child access healthcare, etc.? So again, two questions there. The main one, probably Anais, does a child need a visa? And of course, it depends where you're moving from, but the requirements, I think I can answer the first one, which is financially, you need 20% more. Am I right in saying that, Anais? 20% more than the minimum requirement because you've got a child. And then does the child need a visa?
Yeah, so a child will need also a visa, excepting, some particular scenario. For instance, if the person just want to make some tourism, and if it's less than 90 days, some countries permits through agreements with France to do not have to apply for a visa. But if it's a permanent resident that you are looking for, even the child need a VLSTS, like a long stay visa, and it will be the mention is a minor visitor visa. So you have to prove resources, including
20% more in
yeah
addition
the
to
child.
so the
Yeah,
minimum being 1,389
yeah,
euros net at the moment, right? So
yeah,
it has to be that times 12 in a available account, all coming in every month. And if you've got a child, plus 20%.
exactly.
And then Juliet, maybe, does the child access healthcare? So the same rules, I think, apply. So maybe first the parent, is it the parent that
Yeah,
would then?
exactly. We do first the application for the parents. We need to be patient because it's really French bureaucracy to obtain the carte vitale. It's also the first real registration in the French system. So they check everything about the life, more documents in general for the woman, because if they were married or anything, they are going to check divorce, birth certificate, everything they can ask. And the child, after, we need to complete another form to join the application, and he will not have a carte vitale. Yeah.
Then the child.
Yeah.
And fair to mention again, sorry for the anonymous attendee, you will need private medical insurance for yourself, of course, and covering your children to be able to enter in the first place. And you'll need to prove that, Juliet, to be able to enter the French system, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In any case, they ask everything about your life, your situation, and so many documents, but we are here to help for that, clearly.
Sure. No, but I know.
And to contact them.
Not there. You've got to understand that you have to have that medical insurance before you enter the country. That will be a requirement for the visa. And then when you enter, you try to enter the French medical system, which you can do after 90 days of spent in the territory. You can then you'll then need to prove all of that again. So it's like a dual application in a way. It's kind of the first hurdle is the visa, and then you've got the French healthcare application that follows.
In any case, the best advice for the healthcare application is to start the quickest as possible. So everybody can start after 3 months of residency in France. And really, if you can anticipate that, to start it the quickest is the best.
Cool. Another question, sorry, just coming in. Thank you, girls, for that. I plan to apply for residency. What happens if I have a child while in France? Okay, this is an unusual one. Actually, to be fair, it's probably happened to one of our clients recently. But so what would I need to see my newborn up correctly? What would their citizenship be? In brackets, I'm a US citizen. So this is a US citizen moving to France, potentially having a baby. So congratulations if that's the case. And so first criteria are going to be the same, right? And it's going to be income based. You've got to prove that you've got your income, that you've got your medical insurance, that you've got somewhere to live. You'd then have your visa appointment.
Yeah, it's a little bit different if I understand, because she explained that
she might be pregnant now.
The children is born in France.
Well, it's not happened yet, but it's what happens if,
But if it happens, the minors in the French territory does not need to prove a permit to stay.
Okay.
That's the very big difference between the entry into the territory and being already in the territory. So you are not obliged to ask for a permit to stay with a limited time. It's not a problem at the beginning. Which can be interesting is to anticipate in the average 6 years of the child, because after there was interest regarding the French nationality, because in France we have the right of blood, not the right as the US, for instance. It's not because you were born in France that you are French. So it's as long as you will stay with your child in France, as long as it could benefit from the French nationality. It's different, it will be regarded regarding the age of the child. So, for instance, if he is in France between his 6 years old to it's 13 years old, he can apply for the French nationality, for instance. So it's something to anticipate, but it's not a direct right for the French nationality because he is born in
You were
France.
born.
Yeah.
Sure. So I think I had the
Um,
same actually. I was born in France. My parents never bothered to do anything because it was back then it was
yeah.
Europe anyway. But my parents are British for those that didn't hear the accent. But I actually had to prove when I got my French passport before Brexit happened that I'd been in school for over 13 years or something like that. I had to actually get letters from the school. And, you know, there was a whole load of rigmarole around even having to prove that I was genuinely in France for a long period of time, as well as being born in France. But yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one, though. So I'd have thought that automatically being born in France would have given you nationality, which is obviously not the case. So don't ever listen to me. Hence why I've got these guys in the background, obviously helping us or helping me answer these questions, because I think that's also a platform that we work around. I'm just very conscious of the time today, guys, and I want to answer as many questions as possible. I've just got a few ones again that are linked to remote working. For all those that have got more questions around remote working, I think the best thing to do is definitely to book an appointment with us, because we've got all of the latest data. I think before we leave, what would be really useful, and I'd love to share with you guys, is the process of application and how we've seen change in the last few months. Maybe just because Juliet, of course, you prepare the files for Anais, and then you liaise with the client. So for instance, for those that are watching today, if you're thinking about becoming a client in French Connections, what we do is you'll first have a call with me. I will be, you know, as good as anyone, I guess. I'm pretty talented at finding solutions, and I'll put a plan together and then I'll hand it over to the ladies here. And there are many more in our team. But of course, the idea would genuinely be that you would become a client because you want assistance with the overall services that we provide that I showed you earlier. But the first one being the visa preparation. So that's data collection. That's done through our portal. Then we book an appointment. And so for most of the questions, I've seen US clients here online today. So shall we just talk before we leave and end this session a little about the process of application? So if you're going to use our services, we're going to collect the data. The ladies here are going to check that everything is compliant. We give you a delivered goods, 100% money back guarantee on all of our service. But we also prepare you for the appointment, because that's usually what's the most stressful, right? So in the US, for those watching, it is VFS, which is a private company, which subcontracts for the French government in the US and in Canada. And in the UK, it's a company called TLS. So those are I guess the most of our clients are from those three places. For those in Australia and New Zealand, you're going to deal directly with the embassy. I'm correct in saying so direct with embassy. So let's give a little bit of a flavor of what that looks like. So we would prepare you for these appointments. We would constantly have clients going through, and so we've got the very latest intelligence on each appointment. But maybe Juliet, how do you go about so what have you noticed over the last few months of how does that work, and how clients are being treated in these centers?
So in general, it's good to have the first call, just to understand really the needs, if there is an emergency, if we have time, because it's completely two different organizations. Everything can be done very quickly. In fact, it's not a problem. It's just, in general, it's stressful application. So we try to not give all the information at the beginning to be sure we can do everything step by step. So yeah, first we collect all the documents. We check the document. We don't send any document to the authorities. All the clients will bring with them all the document to the interview at the visa center. In general, we prepare really everything. So we complete the visa form. We send to the client the visa form just to check and everything is clear for them. after we booked the appointment together, and after they receive a big email with the official lists of documents they need to bring to the interview. And in this list is personal list, depends on the situation. And there is in general, a link to organize a call with Richard, because all the clients.
That's if you're using our service, of
Yeah.
course. I mean, if you're not, then you'll just be doing this through, is that through the VFS website? You don't do it through the French government?
About to take the appointment?
So if you're doing this on your own, just for
Yeah.
an American option, they do it straight for the VFS website.
Exactly.
Okay.
And with the client's email, so the client receive all the notification if there is any update. Yeah, exactly. And after we have the surprise.
For my part, it's also when I'm doing the visa preparations, etc. So I speak with you before and afterwards to understand what's going on in each appointment. I've had the feedback from my US clients that this is really doesn't even feel like an interview. Like, am I right in saying this, Anais? It's like, it's more just a data collection process that they're checking that your documents are in order before they then dispatch it to the embassy in Washington, DC. So they're kind of just they're just collecting data. So I think people get really worried about this stage. And I think for all the US citizens watching, again, I'm just saying that France is an awful lot easier. We're helping our colleague move to the US, and it is super complex to get a US visa. To get a French visa, on the other hand, it's actually pretty straightforward. I mean, there are just some requirements, but the process itself, especially from what I hear from US clients, is really pretty straight. I mean, it's pretty easy. It goes pretty fast. You go to the center. We've had a few recently, Juliet, where the client has been confused because when they've gone to the center, we've nearly prepared them too much for this event. And the actual person that's not interviewing you, but collecting the data doesn't have much information to give you. In fact, they probably don't know the process all of that well, so if you ask them questions, they might give you conflicting information and that becomes stressful. But what about the embassy, Anais? What can we give people information, or what does an embassy appointment look like? Is it the same?
It's not exactly the same thing because at the embassy, the person are, expatriate, but from the French government. So they are formed for analysis the document, and they are not just collecting. So sometimes they can ask some questions in order to add precision or details in the concerning the project of the person, etc. So for the embassy, my advice will be to prepare your speech concerning your project in France, being clear and transparent, and explaining the goal, and that the goal is matching with the type of visa asked. That's very important. And that's my only advice, because it's quite quick also.
It is so, but it is fair to say so that then, unfortunately, for our Australian, New Zealanders that are watching today, potentially people that are living in or citizens in other European countries. So we have that a lot. We have a lot of US citizens that are living in Portugal, maybe in Italy, maybe in Germany, maybe in Switzerland, that are looking to move to France. So they're going to be citizens potentially, or their long-term residency is in that country. So to be clear, that's okay for you in that context to apply from the country which you're living in. That's correct, isn't it, Annie? So where you're living in, or which passport you hold. So if you're living in France, in Switzerland, for instance, you're going to deal with the French embassy in Switzerland, right? That's what will happen. And that's going to be a little bit more complex. That's what we're saying. It's not necessarily harder. It's just you're going to have to make sure that there's a real sort of background to what you're doing. And I think, in fairness, also, guys, it's worth noting that we haven't seen many rejections. I mean, we do 5 applications a week on average, Juliet. I think maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
There's not that many rejections. In fact, we've never really had to I mean, I think that's maybe it's because we prepare the files well, but I think in general, if you're ultra cautious with preparation, it's good. But sometimes if there has been, it's just that they give a 6-month visa instead of a 12-month, right? That's often the case, I think, Anais, isn't it? They just give you a different type of visa.
Yeah, sometimes it happens, but there is no reason. Sometimes it's just only the embassy who do not understand the exact goal of the project. That's why I was explaining that it's important to explain that you need to stay more than 1 year. If you need to stay more, you have to
Yeah,
precise
you've
it.
got to say, and so that's maybe sometimes where I get flack online because I've said, oh, you can't do the application with a hotel booking or things like that. Well, technically you could, as long as you had lots of money in your account and you could say, look, I'm planning on buying a house, but it's just so much safer to go there with a real proof of residency. So I think again, clearly online, it's like just make sure that you've really got that backstory, and it makes more sense to the embassy if you've got a 12-month rental contract, if you've got a proof of purchase of a property. And that question came up. Sorry, we haven't had time to answer all of them, but do you need a bank account in France to have a visa? No, it's fine, but you have to have readily available funds. So you have to show, I think we've had up the case often, Juliet, not so long ago, with a client that had nearly too much money in their account and their account wasn't moving or wasn't showing that there was activity. And they even questioned that.
It was not exactly that. It was just a very special account and it was not current account. So the authorities were scared. He can have the money available straight if he need it when he arrived in France. So yeah, we asked to move the money in the current account.
And I think that's the general advice, isn't it? It's like, well, actually, if you can show that you've got sufficient funds, and quite often this is not a problem for most of our clients, right? You're setting up, you're relocating completely. And so I think, again, I just take away that often the problem that we've had is the medical insurance, not so much that it wasn't compliant, but the dates don't match sometimes the travel requested. I think that's something that people have got to be careful of.
Not, in fact, if you can see the mention, it's renew, you can renew the insurance. It's not a problem, just the insurance needs to start. You have the choice, the same day to arrive in France or maybe before you plan to arrive in France, but not later.
And what about you, Anais? Do you think that it helps to have travel plan? So to show that you've booked travel, do you think that affects the decision or not?
Sorry, there was a bug in the
No,
video.
sorry.
Can you repeat, please?
Do you think it's easier to make the application if you've actually got a flight booked to Paris, or is it going to help to show that you've paid for a ticket, or is it just the dates that you choose are the dates that you choose?
To me, there is no impact concerning the flight. But I'm agree with Juliet concerning the insurance. To me, that's important to have an insurance that's which beginning before your travel to France. That's the thing that is the most important for the French government. You will see that everywhere in the immigration law text, it is always written that you don't have to be a charge for the French government. Okay. So that's why there is this condition of insurance all the time.
Yeah. And then from the UK, you've got to have special mentions on there. And I think, again, from an insurance perspective, make sure that you check your policies, that they actually match with what there is, but also that you're not being charged far too much money for something eventually that you don't need or that won't cover you in that matter. And pre-existing medical conditions are very rarely going to be taken consideration. So, you have to have plan Bs and understand what's going to happen. For those that are moving from the US, Medicare can still cover you, for instance, for the first 12 months, and we can enter the French system fairly quickly. We can get a numéro de sécurité sociale d'urgence, which can be applied for pretty much within the 90-day period. And you can pay in advance for your medical fees and get your money back later. So I think that's to be reassuring. It's like you don't need to spend $8,000 on a medical policy. You can actually probably work a way around that with a good and a happy medium. So make sure that you really prepare on that aspect. And I think that's kind of, what we've been saying today is like how, make sure that there's a lot of preparation. If you are contracting companies to help you with this, make sure that they've got experience. Law firms, I know you can't, we're not going to ask you to blemish other lawyers, Anais, but it's true that sometimes it's made to nearly seem overcomplicated, in my opinion, to charge, $3,500 or something like that for what is actually just purely an admin process. And I think that's why we've ended up focusing on an overall service, because then we can be great value for money for clients. And I think that's where, we make the difference, is that we've got this full package and we tailor it to your needs, and then we make it affordable by allowing monthly payments and things like that, but mainly giving you guarantees on the services that we provide. So I think that's the main thing. I just in terms of a few questions have come in. Can you can you talk about the fee structures of what we do? They are very specific to your case, and we go from helping you purchase a vehicle to organize business creations, etc. But if I was to give you a sort of flavor, I would say that a fairly inclusive package might be somewhere around 7,000 to 10,000 euros per person, maybe a bit more if you want, the kind of Rolls Royce kind of service. But that would be from taking you from visa all the way to residency, and having our assistance with, everything from tax code, tax returns, all of those kind of things. So again, if you've got some specific questions, Andrea, sorry, I was in my French mode there, on those bits, just, feel free to book an appointment with us, and we'll give you a detailed and personalized quotation based on that. Having a French bank account, by the way, is not mandatory. We can help, though, with our partners at BNP Paribas to open up an account before you get to France. That being said, and Juliette, that's you that looks after BNP, they're not the easiest to deal with, but they will open an account at a distance for you. Is that the case?
No, in fact, BNP, I think it's a very good bank, because they propose this option to open a bank account without to be resident in France.
So you can do that from America. So for those in American Canadians, if you contact us, we can actually open an account with the biggest bank in France. I think BNP is probably
one of the biggest.
We can do that and have the card sent to your home in the US or to our office in France. So when you arrive, we can give you that service, right?
And it's very practical, because if you plan to buy a house or to rent something, if you need to open all the contracts for water, electricity, internet, sometimes if it's not French bank accounts, that can be blocked, because we need to have French bank details. So yeah, we advise to do it. And if you have time, that can be the first thing we start and the first process. So
you can do that with just your paperwork in your own country. And I think another thing that we offer, and it's part of the sort of full relocation package, is the fact that we have our own properties that you can rent from us. It's actually our American friend who prepares those properties. So, we have these properties in the southwest of France that we own. So we make the decisions on them, and you can use those maybe for a small period of time. Usually, Juliette, you also coordinate those. So you can use those for a small period of time to register your visa. We give you 12-month contracts, which are the minimum type of contracts. By the way, for all the Americans and all the UK guys watching, in France, a 12-month contract doesn't mean that you need to spend 12 months in the apartment. It's just a legal requirement that means that the tenant, basically all the rules are in advantage of the tenant, right? So the evil capitalist landlord is not allowed to kind of throw you out, or there's so basically, as long as you give a month's notice, unlike the US, where if you've signed up for 12 months, or the UK, you've got to stay there 12 months. Or if you want to leave early, you need to pay for the 12 months in total. Whereas in France, you just give a month's notice. You send a letter, courrier recommandé, and you tell the landlord, I'm leaving. So for us, that allows us to do the kind of visa aspect process. You maybe to try the region, but we also maybe can get a car purchase for you. And you do that a lot, Juliet. I know. So we buy a vehicle, we get it delivered to the airport with maybe your bank card, your mobile phone, and then you've got somewhere, one of our places that's ready for you to stay. Because one of the questions that keeps on coming is, how do I find a long-term rental in France? We all know that that's pretty difficult, right? It's not easy to rent without being in France. So I think I mean, that to answer that question, like of course we've got a solution for our clients, but if not, I mean, what are the other things? So just to finish on that topic, it's such a big question. Anais, in your experience, if you don't have a long-term rental and you don't have huge amounts of money in the bank account, would it be okay to have like a friend give you an address, or is that still going to be okay? Or do you really need to back that with an overall plan? Do you still?
Well, it will depend again regarding the type of visa. If it's a visitor visa, do not forget that the conditions, the biggest conditions is the condition of resources. So obviously they will have a look on on your accommodations. It is possible in theory to be welcomed by a friend with an attestation that you are living with this person, but it can maybe put some question in the mind of the controller, the agent of the prefecture. Maybe they will control more your resources, saying, okay, he is welcomed by a friend,
But
but
I was saying, if
yeah.
you've got big resources, usually that will be okay. If you can then
But
say
if
that,
there is sufficient resources, it is possible because they just ask for
see that,
a fixed accommodation. There is no condition of being alone or being
yeah.
welcomed by a friend. But if there is sufficient resources,
And it's fair
that's
to
fine.
say as well, le compromis de vente, so the first stage of a signature, is not sufficient. It has to be l'acte authentique, the final stage of the purchase. So for those that have signed the first stage of the purchase and think they can use that for the visa, you can't use the compromis de vente. So that's important to mention for those watching. I've actually got just a quick one here, guys. We've got Daryl, who's our agent in Orlando, Florida, that's saying hi. He's so hi, Daryl. He's there, obviously, if you want to speak to a fellow person from the US. He's our agent over there, and he works with us in all of the US. So obviously, if you do want to speak to Daryl, please let me know, and I'll get him to reach out to you. And I think that's pretty much all we've got time for today. We've already massively overrun. So thank you all for staying tuned for so long. And thank you, Anais. Thank you, Juliet. Before we go, what are your top tips for people that are moving? Go on, Juliet, you first.
I think anticipate, try to collect all the documents we ask for, or the authorities ask for. Be sure the documents are correct. It's not a negotiation. If they ask for this type of document, you need to submit this type of document. Yeah, I think it's the key. The preparation is the key.
Cool. And what about you, Anais? So you can't do the prepare. We've already said that.
In order to do not say the same thing, but I'm agree with Juliet. I can add that you have to bear in mind that the French authorities are authorities. We are dealing a lot with documents. They don't trust only on declaration. You need to prove by facts, by document, your affirmations. That's why you need to record all your document if you want to do by your home. And I will add also that if you have any doubt concerning how to follow a specific procedure, the best thing is to consult a professional, especially for all the things concerning changement of statutes, etc. It's very specific procedures. So in any doubts, that's better to it's my opinion, to speak with a professional.
Sure. And I would add to that, though, just be careful of the professional. So you got to, we hear so many horror stories. And I hate to say, I mean, I'm sure you'd agree, actually, and it's even in the law professions, you know, people, when we've worked with law firms in the past, sometimes you kind of, they don't actually deal with this amount of, you know, kind of processes, and that it's only because we have so specific requirements on constantly kind of the same stories, I guess, that we really know in depth of how much information there is required, or the latest information as well. But equally, if somebody's offering you these services for 500 euros, it's just not, just don't do it. But just do it yourself. And on that bombshell, we'll be ending our webinar today. But we're going to be working really hard with the girls that well, you haven't seen also today, but we're also going to be recording loads more videos about how to do this yourself, because we're frustrated when we see that people, that we know that everybody doesn't have the budget potentially to use our service. And there's those that just don't see the value in doing it initially. And for those that don't, you know, please check out what we do in our reviews, because I think you'll see that it's totally worth what we charge for. But the main part is we want to make this information freely available to you, because we're just frustrated about the amount of, you know, kind of hand holders or law firms that specialize in just one aspect of it. We want to make this freely accessible. And I think what's really important to understand, and I completely agree with Juliet, if the government asks you for that, they're not being difficult. That's just the way that they work. There's no gray area. It's black or white. And it might be frustrating, because you're like, well, I've got £2 million in my bank account, or $2 million, and, you know, I don't have this paperwork. I don't care, you know. But if you start having that approach in France, unfortunately, it's the land of égalité, and it's égalité pour tous. So it's the same rule book for everyone, whether you've got lots of money or not. But I think the most reassuring thing I can say today is that the French government really wants you to get that visa. In fact, we've seen it loads of times, Anaïs, Juliet, with clients that might have, the government actually has a question. So the embassy has a question, and they give us that opportunity to answer it. So it could be about remote working. If you said that you're going to be remote working, it could be about your income, about your insurance. They very, very seldom just say no without any kind of trying to help you. And I think that's really important to consider. For those watching from the USA, it's a really nice process in a way. I mean, as much as it's not super, super enjoyable, and maybe you're going to have quite a stressful time getting things together, the process is quite straightforward and very efficient. I think in the US, I've got to say, compared to even the UK, it's kind of, visas are delivered really quickly. One thing that we didn't mention, you're going to have to leave your passport with the center, and it's going to go to DC. So you're going to have a period of time without your passport. But we'll do more in-depth videos on that. For that, that's all the time we've got for today. Anaïs, Juliet, thank you so much for taking time off on your Saturday to join us. Thank you all for watching, and thank you for the support you give into French Connections HCB. And yeah, if you want to reach out to us, we'll be sending out links for discounted initial consultations, and any other questions, obviously just visit our website, pop us an email, or follow us on socials. Thank you all, guys. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.